Here's a little opportunity to use the hockey brush to adjust and just paint over, re-wet a large area that has a variety of paint in it, and painting I've already done. And the hockey brush is nice and soft and just holds a lot of water, and it's great to sort of re-wet a specific area. I'm going to re-wet the following. Pay close attention. This hill, this hill, this hill, and the sky. So and I'm going to bring in especially some yellows. I'm going to try to bring in a little bit more yellow over here. But this is a good example of the kind of thing that I will do to sort of adjust really overall things. One thing that this is good for is unifying. We've been sort of addressing these individual shapes so much that the lines are really quite strong, a little more stark than I want them. I'm just going here and kind of, I do want to sort of address, even though that's clear water that I just put into this whole shape, I do want to try to define that. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of, I'm wishing that here I would have left a little bit of area where I could where it could be a little bit more yellow. So what I'm doing is you can probably hear that, I'm scrubbing away color. And this can have an effect of beating up your watercolor paper, so there's sort of a don't do too more than you have to. I was wanting to have more of a hint of orange as we got up to the sky there, as to the upper part of the sky there. And the other thing that is sort of happening without me thinking about it, a little bit of blue is creeping up, which is actually okay. I'm going to take my brush, I still have that yellow in there. The yellow and the blue kind of are going to get a little too greenish, but I'm trying to soften up some of these, you know, stark edges that I've been painting around, because I've wanted to sort of be in control of how much color of what is going where. But at this point, I'm kind of wanting those to do a little bit more unifying with each other. So I'm just bringing in some gentle water. Not sure if this technically qualifies as you there. Get way too much paint, just or water. That's one of the nice things about doing a painting with where you're going all the way up to the sides. Let's soften things up a little bit here. I'm going to come over and get that I am also going to bring in a touch more quinacridone rose. I want to make sure that there's sort of a decent little variety of orangey and rosy and pinky and I might be second guessing myself a little bit on that scrubbing out. Eventually I'm going to add some blue and violet. One of the tricky things is when you're starting to mix complementary colors, of getting unintended, unwanted graying out, neutralizing. So I'm bringing in some yellows and oranges and trying to just kind of have some fun with that. And if I also tried to mix in some blues right now to try to violet this up a little bit, what would happen would be that I would start introducing some greens as the wet yellow and wet blue started mixing together. Kind of like I was doing over here, which I don't really want in the sky. But if I let the layers dry and then add another, come back over that with another layer, then that that works out much better. And I was looking for that one brush. So that was a fun amount of yellow that I put in there, perhaps a bit too much, perhaps not. I do want to have things yellowish, much more yellowy around, sort of around the sun, and to get that kind of feel. This seems well. This is one of those. This is one of those times when it seems tricky to know if it's time to let go or a perfect opportunity to do a little bit more. I'm dropping in a little bit of darker color towards the top of this ridge. This whole shape is wet, so there's nothing that's going to stop this paint from bleeding up into the next shape, which in this particular instance is kind of okay, because I want a little bit of fuzziness, a little bit of less of such a clear demarcation. Demarcation, there's a good word that I'm looking for. Oh heck, I could even tap in a little up there. I know I said don't do it because the blue is going to mix with some yellows, but I know that there's no yellows really over here. I will be doing more of that for the sky. Kind of clean up around this mess I was making. And try not to worry if some of this is mixing, if I'm overlapping the tree a little bit. Because there is a nice, just sort of natural mixing, when things mix a little bit visually, especially when you step back and you're not sort of staring at them so closely. They'll mix much more pleasing. Dabbing in a little bit of blue over here too. This may qualify as not really watercolor one, but hey, you guys are good. Or just keep watching this and enjoying it. So that's plenty for that. This the yellow has definitely come down in this whole area here, and I think I'm going to leave that because it is sort of everything that's closer visually to the sun is gonna take on a yellowish hue, yellowish cast. Kind of deciding how dark to make this second one, especially since I'm not really in charge of where the paint stops. I could sort of pick up some. I'm not going to do that too much though. I put in a little bit of darker color over here just to help sort of keep the eye from going off the page. You can tell some bleeding is going on up there that is really would be really easy to get upset by, but it's going to be fine. I'm going to bring in a little bit, especially over here. I'm going to wet down the big shape again and bring in some really soft violet, probably just blues. While that's all happening, I'm going to let that dry, and I'm looking around at the shape to kind of see how I would expect it to dry, and I think it's going to be fine. I can take the opportunity to do something kind of small and simple here as well while I'm still recording. This shape down here that I went over with some blue has sort of lost its way a little bit. I'm not sure if I scrubbed too hard or what, but it needs some love. Just a bluish. Slightly grayed out blue is what I'm after here. I don't want to start competing with the darkness of that, but anytime you glaze across two shapes, it will sort of naturally and nicely kind of fuzz out any, well, to a certain degree, the really crisp lines. It can be sometimes too crisp. Even without sort of like agitating them that we were sort of doing, I was doing up there. Sure hope that's in camera. May not be. That was getting a little too dark. The more you sort of adjust things by reworking, agitating paint that's already on, just the less fresh it kind of starts to feel. I think mostly it's just kind of the paper. The less it gets sort of beat up, you know, the more clean any given wash will appear. So cool. And this, just so you know, this compositionally is really, wasn't really even there, but I really wanted to stop the eye from following this line of the front hill all the way down and just going into someplace else besides my painting. And I want the viewer's eye to stay in my painting. I'm selfish that way. And in fact, oh, I can't let this little shape go. This can sort of happen sometimes. Little parts of a painting that you didn't think were really, that were sort of a bit of an afterthought, sometimes can start taking on a little bit more than it seemed like they should have, but more effort than I was originally thinking, but that's okay. I'm going to let that dry and see what happens. Okay.